Today's movie is Where the Crawdads Sing. This movie takes place in 1950s North Carolina, where we have our main protagonist, Kaya, who lives with her family in his shack. The family has an abusive alcoholic father. He ends up driving each of the family members away, first the mom, then the siblings one by one, until only Kaya is left with the father. Kaya learns the secret of living with her dad is just kind of staying out of the way. They end up getting this really sweet bond. Father teaches Kaya a couple things on how to live and teaches her not to trust anybody because she'll always get hurt. And of course, then the father ends up abandoning Kaya as well, so that she's left alone in the shack. With what her father taught her, Kaya's able to live off of the land. She starts selling mussels to a local store and is able to buy food and necessities, and she ends up living alone in the shack for many years. There's a scene where Kaya tries to go to school, but because she's the marsh girl, she's feeling humiliated and runs away and doesn't go back. So she ends up not being educated and spends her days in the marsh, works on her drawings. Now through this story, you see Tate, a local fisherman's son. He's at the beginning where he wants to go fishing with one of the siblings. He helps Kaya when she gets lost in the marsh find her way home. As teenagers, he starts reaching out to Kaya. They become close friends, and Tate ends up teaching Kaya how to read, and they end up together reading the entire library. Tate has inspirations where he doesn't want to be a fisherman's son, and he wants to go to college to become more, to do more with his life. He ends up telling Kaya that he promises he'll be back, but ends up abandoning her as well. After Kaya's feeling pretty lonely and abandoned, she ends up meeting Chase, who is a local who finds Kaya fascinating, and the two become very close, spending a lot of time together. You can tell she really doesn't like him, even saying in the movie that he's not really Tate and she doesn't really like him too much, but at least she's not lonely anymore. So those two become very close. One day, Kaya's walking in the town and finds out that engaged to somebody else. She runs away and doesn't want to see Chase again. Chase keeps chasing her because he kind of wants her on the side. He doesn't want anybody else to have her. Through this story, it's interlaced that the town has arrested Kaya and are charging her with the murder of Chase. Here's our mystery, whereas nobody knows what happened to Chase. Was it an accident, or was he murdered by Kaya, or did he get murdered by somebody else? Now, full disclosure, I have not read the book. I know from what I've heard, this book is very loved by many people. I felt that this movie was reminiscent of a Nicholas Sparks movie like Message in a Bottle or The Notebook. I really did enjoy the character of Kaya. I've liked watching her grow. I liked her progression of being a kid stuck in an abusive situation and being able to find herself and ultimately finding out who she really is. I think it's relatable for women, especially because we know what it's like to get into these icky situations or relationships, and being able to learn from those and find out what we really want and who we really are as people. So Kaya is played by Daisy Edgar Jones, who we saw earlier this year in the movie Fresh. And I can't wait. I think she's a very talented actress, and I can't wait to see what she brings next. I really like the couple. Mabel and Jumpin are the black couple who own the store. You could tell they really cared about Kaya. They really wanted to help her. But being that this was 1950s North Carolina, really you could see that they couldn't do much. So the father character is played by Garrett Dillahunt, who's actually a character actor I really like. You may have seen him in Army of the Dead. He's in Fear the Walking Dead, and I really like him in this show called Raising Hope. He's getting a little typecasted as being a total jerk. I really hope he gets the chance to do more because he's really good at comedy, and in his comedy roles, he seems like a very lovable actor. The social worker scene is a little weird to me. There's a part where the social worker is trying to find Kaya so he can put her and take her out of the marsh and put her into school and into a home, into probably foster care. And they don't really do much to try to find her. Like, he goes around asking people about her, and that's one of the scenes and that's, I think, the scene that got me pretty emotional with Mabel and Jumpin'. However, they don't really try that hard. I don't know if it's editing in the movie, I don't know what's in the book, but they don't really try to find her. Like, they just ask around, they knock on the door, and that's it. Like, I feel at least nowadays people would, stake out the house and have the whole sheriff department going after her. So the lawyer is played by David Strathairn. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I understand he's a sweet lawyer and he wants to help, but there's not a lot of backstory. I wanted more backstory on this character. Like, why does he want to help? There's a scene where he's listening to them talk about the Marsh girl and how she's been arrested for murder. And why is he helping her? Why is he taking this time? There's a scene where he helps her try to find the school when she tries to go the first time. But there's really not a backstory. Who is this lawyer? I would have been more interested in his part if I knew more of his background. And he doesn't want to be a lawyer anymore, so he comes out of this to help Kaya, but I really wanted to know why. Now, this was an average movie, but I really did have a good time. I really enjoyed myself. I was enthralled by the characters. I enjoyed the murder mystery. The ending was actually rather predictable, but going into this, I knew what I was getting into. It was probably more like I said, it was like a Nicholas Sparks movie. I give this movie a 3 out of 5 stars, or 60%, or a 6 out of 10. My recommendation, if you want a fun girls' night, that's when you should probably go to this movie. Otherwise, I would wait and just stream it. What's interesting with Rotten Tomatoes is the critics are hating this movie. Right now, the critics have it as a 36%, but the audience score is crazy high. It's like 96%. So like I say, mine is always somewhere in the middle, but it is interesting to note that audiences are really loving this movie, but it's not going to have critical acclaim. Alright, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the movies.